on that, and we will also, thank you, Natalie. We will also post these videos on the Facebook page for people to watch, and we'll also send them out via email when we're done with this today, so you can reutilize them for whatever you want. So if you could do me a quick favor and put your full name and your email address in the chat. We just want to be able to keep track of who's here, who joined us today. That's kind of how we are keeping attendance. So if you could do that for me, that would be great. And we want this to be informal. We want this to be a learning opportunity for you guys. So I'm sure Denise will give you plenty of opportunities to interact and ask questions. She's really good at that. And so hopefully you guys have grabbed your cup of coffee and you can sit back and relax and enjoy this education. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Denise for today's education.
Yay! Welcome, you guys. So excited. So I'll introduce myself. I don't know everybody on the call, but I am one of the founding members of the Nebraska Culture Change Coalition. So I've been hanging around this group for a long time. But I'm also a pharmacist by profession. I live in Omaha, Nebraska, and my current employer is the Eden Alternative. I've been with them for 13 and a half years. And I am all about changing the culture of elder care, better experience of aging, keeping our power and our autonomy as we move through the aging process, and just really making sure that we create places where people thrive and not just exist. So I have a lot to share, but today we're going to focus in. They made me focus. So I'm going to focus in on the concept of well-being because it's a new year. So it's a good time to think about what is your well-being? What do you need for your well-being? And how will you strengthen your well-being throughout the year? And then how can you use those same ideas to strengthen other people's well-being? And so the Eden Alternative back in 2006 brought together a bunch of culture change leaders and said, you know, OBRA 87, which was the regulatory evolution for long-term care, said that we need to help people attain their highest practicable physical, mental, and psychosocial well-being. And it's mentioned throughout the regulatory requirements of participation that everybody follows. And we said, okay, so what is well-being? We have this whole concept of wellness, and that's really well defined. But now we are talking about well-being, and what does that mean? So the culture change leaders came together, and what they did was they identified 7 domains of well-being. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen so that you can see what they are, and then, let's see, share my screen. Nope, that one, there we go. And then the other thing I'm going to do is put in the chat box a download link to a white paper that you guys can all go and find. Hang on, there we go. That you guys can go and download, which will have some more information about the domains of well-being and what they're about. But they defined well-being as a contented state of being. And then they identified these 7 domains: identity, growth, autonomy, security, meaning, growth, and joy. And it's been really interesting because I've been using these to teach a lot of people and to talk about improving elder care. There's a lot of different ways that they have been incorporated into our materials and what we do. And I find that everybody can find their sense of well-being through these 7 domains. So I want to just pause for a minute or two and have you guys just on your own write down, what do you need to personally experience well-being? What do you need in your life? Just write down a few things. What do you need to experience well-being?
There's my tea for you. Oh, thanks. Oh, I like your bingos.
What do you need to experience well-being?
Do you want us to write that in the chat box?
Nope, just for you.
On paper?
Yep.
Okay. Wonderful.
Absolutely. Just wanted to kind of like you get your head into your headspace, because Because well-being is about all of us, and that's why we titled this "Well-being is a Human Right," because well-being is what all of us want and what all of us desire, and the systems and processes of support that we put in place to help others should encompass how do we help them have well-being through our support services as well. So what we're going to do is go through each one of these domains, and I just want to engage in a conversation about what they are, kind of like how we define them, what you need for well-being and how it matches up, and then talk about how do we weaken our own that domain, or how do we strengthen it, and just really think about what does it take to help somebody, to help ourselves have good well-being, and be thinking about it. So the first domain I want to talk about is identity. So let's see if that works. So identity is about having a history, being an individual, being seen as an individual, being well known by the people around us, and kind of having a personhood. And personhood's a really interesting phrase, and it's all about, again, we're a self-standing unit. We have an existence. We don't fade away, and all those kinds of terminologies that we can tend to use sometimes. So our identity is about our individuality, our wholeness. And there's two parts to identity. There's the part of what we see as our identity, how we see ourselves and how we'd like other people to see us. But then there's this other part of how other people actually do see us. And we can't always control the other, but we can control ourselves. And so really understanding, who am I and how do I want to be known, and celebrating that. I was just listening to a podcast this morning that was reminding me about how important it is to live your life. I think she said, live your life with an exclamation point. Really own who you are and who your strengths are. That's part of your identity. It's really important. So think about your own identity. What are some things that can happen? Either you do it to yourself or pressures from others. What can weaken your identity? And you're welcome to unmute or you chat, whatever works best for you. What can weaken your identity?
I would say somebody's negative thoughts.
Negative, your own negative thoughts, others people's?
Are something that is in the best interest of someone.
Okay. You're getting a little slow, Teresa. We might be having a hiccup here. Yeah, so the thoughts that people have about others. So I think about, how we put labels on people. I think about working in the nursing home and how we labeled people by their room and their bed number, by their diagnosis, by how much assistance they need. Well, they're this, they're that. And often when I'm out training and they're telling me stories about an elder, it starts off, well, I'll tell you about Denise. Now, Denise has got, and they start listing off all of Denise's diagnoses and all of the assistance needs. And it's like, wait a minute. I want to see Denise as a person, an individual. I don't need all that other information to understand the story. And so how quickly those labels and then we start owning them. And that really starts eroding our identity. I see mental illness, absolutely. So that can alter our own perceptions, but it also alters other people's. Worrying about what other people want you to be, absolutely. Grief or loss, yes, that can weaken your identity. Being treated as less than someone else, yes. How we try to compete and trying to make everyone happy, which isn't realistic. Yeah. So all those things can start doing it. So that judging brain that we have, that's like innate. It's like Neanderthal brain stuff. That judging brain gets in our way. It affects our own identity, the identity that we hold of ourselves, but it does also affect others. And then the societal perceptions of aging and living with different abilities and living with mental illness and dementia and all those stigmas that get attached. We start eroding people's identity. We can do it really quickly. And we don't even have to say it out loud. We just have to have the thought up here. This is how powerful our brains are. We just have to believe that about that person. And through our interaction, our tone of voice, whether we interact, ask for them to get engaged or not engaged, and what we assume they can do for themselves versus what we need to do for them, that can start to weaken their and erode their identity. So, and then of course the language we use. I just was doing a course with someone and they were talking about nonviolent communication or compassionate communication. Really important to think about the language we use and the words and how much we should ourselves and how much we should other people, and how that gets in the way and starts eroding people's identity. All right, so enough about erosion, but how do you lift up identity? How do you strengthen your own identity? How can you help strengthen someone else's identity?
I'd like to strengthen other people's identities by pointing out to them what they do well.
Absolutely.
And when I do that, it reinforces my own identity.
Yes.
I think coming at conversations from a person first or person centered perspective really helps from both
Yeah.
ends, both the person and me or whoever is having that conversation.
Yeah, kindness and consistency, positive reinforcement, encouraging words. Yeah, serving others, being of service. Yeah. Kind of seeing them as part of the thing. So we talk a lot about care partnership, about seeing ourselves and everybody as a care partner. And it's in all of our best interest to help everybody be their best and engage in everybody and make sure we're meeting their needs as they have them in the moment. So yeah, just really strong relationships, focusing on strengths, seeing the person first, not their disease and diagnosis and all the other labels that we put on. So that's identity. That's the first one. All right, let me share my screen again. And the next one is connectedness. So connectedness is about helping people know that they belong, helping them be engaged, and helping them be involved and really connecting them up. And it includes connecting with the space they're living in, connecting with the people that are in the space that they are in, connecting to the past, the present, the future. It might be connecting to nature. For some people, that's really powerful to have those connections to nature. And so the tough part about connectedness is that we really value independence. We must be independent adults, right? If you can't be independent, you are less connected, because we got to do things for you. So that self-reliance mythology can get in our way, and affect our ability to connect with others. And so the truth is that we're all interdependent. And I don't know about you, but the pandemic really made it clear that we are really dependent on a lot of other people in order to have the life that we want. So there's a lot of more interdependence than there is independence. And when Dr. Bill Thomas started talking about loneliness, which is our disconnection, there wasn't a whole lot of research on that, but now there is a whole lot of research out there. In fact, Dr. Vivek Murthy wrote a book that I absolutely love and highly recommend. In fact, get people together and read it together. It's called Together, The Healing Power of Human Connection in a Sometimes Lonely World. And I love it. And his research that he put in there, because he put a lot of research in there, like being lonely, being disconnected is as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It can cause heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, sleep disturbances, which affects your immune system, makes you more susceptible to other infections and stuff. And he said that 1 out of 3 adults say that they are lonely, meaning that they're disconnected. And the other thing is that this kind of connects up with that idea of identity, because if I don't feel like I'm connected, then I must not be worthy to be connected. So now my identity is starting to weaken too. So you're going to start to see how these domains interconnect with each other. So what have you noticed about what could really help people, what kind of weakens your connectedness and what weakens the connectedness of others? So I think about assumptions we make about people, judgments we make about people, like, you know, based on their aging, based on their ability, based on our understanding of their cognition, we may or may not engage with them. I think about caring for people with dementia. I train about this all the time, about how we do everything for them, or we assume that because they have a power of attorney to make decisions, they can't make any decisions. And the truth of the matter is they can make all kinds of decisions. So we don't engage them, we don't talk with them, we don't ask them, we don't sit down and eye to eye and have a conversation and connect with them, and engage them and do that, because we're too busy. We assume they can't make decisions. They're not living in this world right now. I mean, all this judgment stuff can start to weaken that connectedness. Anybody else? Thoughts? Trying to get the title of that book in the chat. I see that a lot. Okay, so I'm seeing, social media, absolutely saw it's happening with COVID. I mean, like the regulations came on really quick and just cut people off. It was so fast. It just blew my mind. So we disconnected people really, really quickly. Stay in your room, don't come out. You can't go outside. You can't do this. You can't do that. It's like, wow. We just, and our own selves got disconnected really fast. Yeah, Lori says, I see that a lot in serving people with mental illness. People make decisions for them all the time. Absolutely. We know better, right? We're the mighty caregivers. We know better. You don't have to do that. I got that for you. We'll talk about that more. Putting people in unfamiliar spaces and places, like I said, just that connectedness includes feeling like this is familiar space to me. And again, we can create these beautiful homes and move elders in, and they have this 10 by 10 foot space around their bed that can be filled with their things, sort of, kind of, but anything else is just whatever we decide is the best. And so it's not surprising that people feel disconnected sometimes when they move into communities, even though there's lots of people around. But sometimes people need to connect with the space. Sometimes people need to connect with animals. And we have lots of reasons why we can't have real animals around. But sometimes people need animal companionship as much as they need human companionship. The other thing to understand, and that Dr. Murthy talks about this in his book, is that loneliness creates more loneliness. So again, if I'm lonely, I am not making relationships with people. I must not be worthy. And so I actually withdraw instead of go out. And so really understanding the difference between somebody who's lonely and somebody who loves solitude is a really important thing to distinguish for ourselves when we talk about connectedness, because we can get into the encourage them to go to bingo. We're going to roll them out to go to this entertainment this afternoon. We're going to get them involved in this social program in the community, and but we don't ask them if that's what they really want and if that's going to hold any meaning for them. And so just forcing people into it doesn't necessarily get the connectedness. It's kind of have to create a context, and it emerges, which is kind of interesting. Finding ways to give others a sense of purpose. I love it. So let's switch gears and let's talk about what strengthens connectedness. Perfect segue. What strengthens connectedness? So think about meaningful spaces. You know, can people bring their own chair in, their familiar, loving lounge chair, no matter how worn out it is, and put it in the TV room, you know, because that's what they know. You know, their knickknacks around, that kind of stuff. Reconnecting. I've got a team that focuses on life passions. So they have life passion facilitators. And it is their job to figure out what kind of passion do people need to reconnect with in their life, or connect with for the first time. Maybe it's not something they ever thought they would do, like painting and that kind of stuff, but the opportunity came up, it connected up with something inside of them, and they got connected. Giving back, I love the giving back. Dr. Murthy and there's some other books on building community that talks about one of the ways to help people do that is to kind of get outside of themselves and do something for others. And so I've, again, got communities I talk to that they're always working on charitable stuff, food bank kind of stuff, raising money for the kid of someone in town that's sick and that kind of stuff. So always trying to find a way that they can give back in all kinds of big and small ways that can make a difference. You know, the quilts, the baby hats for the NICU and that kind of stuff.
Denise, this is Barb Scott. Someone had mentioned to me a while ago, and I really always try to remember this. It's important for them to say, "You're welcome," rather than "thank you." So, it's very simple, but it's very important for our residents, for the elderly, to be able to say "you're welcome" once in a while. Something to
Absolutely.
remember.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, 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 yes.
I can say we've had several projects here where our folks, and I work all dementia, give back, made the quilts and things and they cried when they gave them back to the homeless because they felt like they could give back to the community and do something. They had a purpose, and that made their day.
Absolutely. So thinking about in your own life and in other people's lives, how do you help build connectedness? New kinds of connectedness, restoring old kinds of connectedness, just all the different ways, because connectedness is a part of our well-being. So we've covered identity and we've covered connectedness. What did you write down that speaks to your need, for your well-being need, that focuses on identity and connectedness? And you don't have to say it out loud, but just kind of think about, what did I write down that speaks to my need for identity and my need for connectedness? All right. The next domain is security. Yes. Security is about safety. We're all about safety in healthcare. It is about privacy, and I mean real privacy. It's about dignity. It's about respect. Those are really big words that are kind of, you can't just like pigeonhole them. They're big and broad words. And freedom from anxiety. Feeling safe and secure, knowing where I'm at, safe and secure not only in the space, but with the people around me. Safety is actually, when you safety and security is really kind of low on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's one of those foundational steps that you need to make. And it's both the physical safety, but it's also emotional safety. And sometimes I think about in the workplace, sometimes we don't have a lot of emotional safety in different work teams and work environments. So how secure do the people that are coming into work feel in their environment? That's important too. So it's about physical, but it's also about emotional safety. So what are some ways that we might actually weaken somebody's sense of security, diminish that? Is there anything you can think of that might diminish somebody's sense of security?
Just kind of poo-pooing them off, not validating their feelings or their fears or whatever it may be.
Yeah, redirection. Don't you love that? Redirection. Distract them. Yeah, no, that doesn't work.
I think sometimes even using that elder speak or that baby talk around someone will reduce and impact their sense of security. It lessens who they feel they are.
Yep. Yeah. Nate says that mechanical approach to care, that task focus. I just got to get this body work done so I can move on to the next body and do what I need to do there. Yeah. And time is a challenge because we got a lot of tasks to do and not as much time as you would think and not as many hands as we would like. And so sometimes we do get into that mindset of like, just get it done, get it done, get it done. Anybody else? How might you weaken somebody's sense of security? How might your sense of security get weakened? Telling a resident they are wrong. Yeah. Disconnecting them from the things they've been familiar with for most of their life. Yeah. Yeah, Al tells a great story about a gentleman that moved into a community. He was living with cognitive challenges and he was always trying to get out the door. And of course, we lock the doors for security, right? Safety and security. So they were trying to figure out how to distract him, redirect him. What do they do? And so finally the administrator said, you know what? Just let him go out. Just let's see what happens. Well, it turns out that he was a farmer and the backyard of the home backed up against a cow enclosure. And he just wanted to go out and check the cows every morning. And he would go out and do that for 5 or 10 minutes and then he would come back in. And So yeah, lots of security there because that's familiar. That's something that I can connect with. It makes me know that I'm in the right place. I belong here. Yeah, really important. The other things I think about is our body language, because sometimes we're stressed in our role and doing things. So what's our pace? What kind of energy do we come in with? And how does that impact somebody else's security? The same thing if somebody's coming at us with a different kind of sense of urgency and energy, and how secure are we feeling as that person approaches us? So it's the same kind of thing. We may not realize the kind of energy that waves ahead of us and how that might affect somebody's sense of security. All right, so how do we strengthen somebody's sense of security? What strengthens your sense of security?
Being treated like an equal.
Telling a person,
Okay. Feeling included is in the chat box, allowing someone to feel as though they are still in control of dictating the terms of their own care. So Andrew, I'm going to just turn that a little bit and say, enabling someone to be in control. Push you just a little bit further with that, because allow still keeps you holding the power. Letting keeps the power with you. But how can you enable someone to actually have a sense of control over their environment, the people they're with, that kind of stuff? Because that's the next leap forward. Yep. I knew that's what you meant, Andrew. I totally did.
I like what Becky said earlier about encouraging the family to come in and be involved with making the room more home-like.
Absolutely. And again, I would say that kind of depends on the person, because it may be that I would want to set up my room. I don't want my daughter to come in and set up the room. She doesn't know where I like things. She doesn't ever go into my bedroom when she comes to my house. So, I also feel that there's a sense of security knowing that I get to touch my stuff and tell you where to put it. Or put it there myself too. So also you gotta know that person to create that sense of security. Absolutely. So again, in terms of our own security, taking time to center ourselves. I've been talking a lot with different providers about this. Like, what are you doing to help people breathe and be centered and be calm before they go in to care for an elder or someone else? And how do you do that for yourself so that you can be your best and feel secure in whatever you're doing? I did some breathing before I got on with you guys this morning, just to feel good about what I'm doing. We're all about consistent relationships between the elders and the people that are supporting them every day. So that care partnership being consistent, super important for security. Having multiple different people and hands and paces and everything coming at you every day. No matter your age, no matter your ability, no matter what's going on, but having different people you're having to work with for support services can be really challenging and can erode your security sometime.
And that's a good point, because I think all of us are in the boat where we're trying to eliminate agency, but we all have a little agency. And so, you got a caregiver come in that's new, and that is it's challenging for our residents. So we need to remember.
It is. So yeah, I've talked to a lot of providers. I mean, everybody I'm talking to, Barb, is in the same boat. I haven't talked to anybody that's like, we got it all. We got them all permanently hired yet. So it's like, how can we bring them in a way that they are kind of oriented to who they're going to be caring for, and what are the best ways to approach this person and speak to this person, and how quickly can you onboard them and help them do that? Or do you mentor them, partner them up with somebody? It's a challenge. Yeah. So absolutely. So, and then I was going to just say, respecting people's boundaries, for their need for privacy, their need for distance between you and them. And especially if you're in the business of doing, personal care kind of stuff, you really want to understand people's boundaries, let them know, I'm going to touch you here, we're going to do this next, that kind of stuff, so that they can prepare themselves and not feel like they're being attacked or rushed. And so Nate, I get back to what you said about that mechanical care. You've really got to be mindful of, People can misinterpret our movements and our touching and that kind of stuff, and we really have to know that person and engage with them and inform them and get the okay before we move on. And that takes time. So yeah, validate their fears. Absolutely. And you don't know, we can also talk about trauma and trauma-informed care, and we don't always know about the things that we might do that might trigger them, and that affects their security as well. So there's a lot of dimensions to security, but what do you need to have security in your life? And what did you write down that speaks to your need to for security in your well-being? All right, the next one is autonomy. This is one of my favorite ones. So autonomy is about having choice, having freedom, having self-governance, self-determination, not being being a victim of somebody else's authority. And it's also about agency. So this is an interesting term that I've learned from one of the people that I work with. And that's that sense of, that's your own internal autonomy. Your understanding that I have control over my actions. I'm willing to take on those consequences. That sense that I can make those decisions. So autonomy is not something you just give to somebody, although you can engage with them, but they also have to have agency. They also internally need to believe that, yes, they can engage. So I have to tell you, in years of trying to help people work through culture change and getting to this person-centered, person-directed care, that sometimes you approach people and say, hey, you have a choice here. And they've been institutionalized to the point where they themselves, their identity is weak enough that they don't believe they have a choice. So sometimes you have to work through that and help the person restore some of their own agency, but you can't, you have to work with them. You can't just like make it happen. You can't just like wave the wand and suddenly they have that autonomy. And the other thing about autonomy that's really interesting is that balance between resident rights and safety. And that's always an interesting conversation to have. So one of the things I would tell you is we don't believe in maximizing autonomy or minimizing autonomy. We believe in optimizing autonomy. So really getting to know that person and how much choice works for them in their life. Because we all know, maybe in our own lives too, that if you give me the whole realm of the world for choice, it's too much. I actually freeze rather than engage. And so get to know that person so that you know how to really optimize the autonomy that works for them. But we can default on the sense of less autonomy and us having more authority and that kind of stuff. So what weakens your autonomy? Or what have you noticed that weakens other people's autonomy? So one of the things Dr. Al Power talks about all the time is all or none thinking. And I kind of alluded to this before. And it really comes up, I'm sure, with people living with mental challenges, mental dis-ease in their life, but also for people living with dementia. And that's the idea that because they have this diagnosis, they either can make all kinds of decisions or they can't make any decisions. And we don't see any gray area in between. And so when we get into that all or none thinking, we can really strip autonomy away really fast. So yes, giving choices.
I think one of the challenges that I see is when the treatment team or the care team really feels the need to put safety over the person's choice. And I get that and I feel for that, but yeah.
Yes. So one of the phrases I've heard a lot of conferences over the year is, do people as they age and live with different abilities have the right to folly? Do they have the right to make decisions that have negative consequences? And it's a really interesting conversation to have because you and I can do that. I made some really poor decisions over Christmas. I ate way too many Christmas cookies and I knew better. but I was willing to accept the consequences of that decision. But sometimes we're like, you can't have dessert until you eat dinner. I mean, we even do this to people that are living in, it's like, what are we doing? So that right to folly, the right to make decisions that have consequences. And part of that is our risk aversion modality is we want to minimize and eliminate all risk. And I'm going to say something that you're probably going to really hate, but Dr. Thomas says the only place that has no risk is a coffin. And it's like, wow, that's, yeah. So even just getting out of bed and stepping on the floor is a risk that, you're going to twist your ankle, you're going to slip. There's risk in everything. So just really trying to negotiate based on people's risk tolerance and really understanding that. So APS says that all the time. If someone has the capacity to make decisions, they have the right to make bad decisions. I love it. Thank you, Jenna. Yeah, we also have the choice to be unsafe. So yeah. And it's a tough thing. I know it's a totally tough thing for providers because you know what the other side of the equation is, and it is not fun. And so how do you have the right kind of conversations and make that work? It's not easy. I'm not in any way saying that it's easy, but it is a part of that whole autonomy conversation. Do people have the right to make bad decisions? Kelly, go ahead.
I was just going to say that we struggle with this in home health, like on a minute by minute basis, because we have people in their homes that are what a lot of people want to call non-compliant, right? And making poor choices. And so the discussion is always like, do we continue to provide care because they're not compliant, they're not following recommendations? And my argument is always like, dude, I don't follow recommendations. Like, we're all non-compliant to a point, right? And we all have the right to make bad decisions. And so that doesn't mean that we shouldn't provide care for someone because they're choosing something that we don't agree with. And so, yeah, super important that we recognize that, they have that right. If they have the capacity to make decisions, they have a right to make a bad choice, not take their insulin, eat a donut when they're, brittle diabetic, whatever. And you and I do the same thing every day. We make choices all day, every day that are not in our best interest. And so that we struggle with that a lot in home health specifically.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, hoarding, dirty home situations, absolutely, Jenna says too. So thank you, Kelly. And I love that you brought up the word non-compliant because that's a label that we put on people and it affects the identity we hold on them. It affects the way we connect with them. It affects how we provide security and autonomy. I mean, you can see how just that word non-compliant, and if I haven't seen this person before and I'm meeting them for the first time and all the documentation says they're non-compliant with this, and this, it's like I'm expecting a fight, man, when I go in to see them. And so I'm going to bring in body language and all kinds of energy that's going to affect their security, which is going to cause them to react. And it's just really interesting how our language plays into this. So yes, absolutely. The other thing we can do in terms of stripping people's autonomy is that outpacing. The idea that just let me do it because I can do it faster and I can get on to the next thing I got to do. So we end up creating all this learned helplessness and we erode people's strengths and their ability to think for themselves because we've done so much for them because it's just more expedient and easier to do that. Yeah, so Nate, opinions get in the way a lot of times, defining harm, to self and others. Yeah, it is a tough call. It is totally a tough. I'm not telling you this is easy. I'm just like, let's explore this and figure this out. Yeah, defining the reason for the behavior. So we're going to get to that, Nate, but these domains of well-being actually help you come up with different kinds of answers that can get you to all kinds of different places with the people that you are in relationship with. Yeah, and what about the fear of what the families will think? Absolutely. And then you get divided families. This daughter's okay with it, but the son is not. And I mean, I know the battles you guys face. But autonomy, what are the simple daily decisions that this person can make for themselves? And it doesn't have to be always the right decision, but how can we start restoring in just little baby steps autonomy for people? Because we all need it. What did you put on your list that speaks to your need to have autonomy, to have choice? Yeah, people not talking to the client, but talking around them to others in the room. Oh, I have heard so many elders tell me how annoying that is. It's like, this is about me. Don't pretend I'm not in the room. And I sat in plenty of care plan meetings and watched that happen and went, what are we doing? This is just so wrong. So wrong. So I have one great story from the pandemic that I thought was really awesome. So there was one team I was working with, and this was like an assisted living community. And all the restrictions came in from the federal government, the state government, the local government, can do this, can't do that, how are we going to? And instead of the leaders getting together in the administrator's office and trying to figure it out, they gathered the elders. And safe distance and all that kind of stuff. But they gathered the elders and said, hey, here's the new directives we have. How are we going to comply with them as a community? And they engaged the elders in figuring out the right answers. I've had another community where the emergency drill business, the elders are sitting down and we're saying, okay, what happens if a tornado happens? Here's what we know. What do you guys want to do? And they work on the plan together and engage the elders in keeping each other safe. And it's like, so cool. They have some choice and autonomy in this conversation. It's great. All right, I'm watching time. I can talk about this forever, so we're going to move a little bit quicker. Meaning is the next one. Meaning is about having hope, having value, having purpose, having significance, and it really builds on the other 4 domains. So if you don't have a strong identity, if you don't feel connected, if you don't feel secure, if you don't feel like you have choice, it's hard to find meaning and purpose in your life. The reason you want to get out of bed every morning. And so meaning is really important, and it is unique to each person. So what's meaningful to me may not be meaningful to you. So again, this is one of the little pitfalls that we can get into as a healthcare provider, especially in a community setting where the activity director is deciding what we're going to do today and not really engaging the elders in defining what we're going to do. So who's meaningful is this? For whom is this meaningful? So what is some things that can happen that can start to erode meaning in your own personal life or in the lives of others? I think about our tendency to do a one-size-fits-all approach. Everybody must love bingo, right? Everybody must love this. And so we do a very programmatic approach to everything without individualizing what we're doing. Again, the idea that the people we support are just there to receive care. There's nothing they can give back. And so we take away their purpose and we strip and erode their meaning. Yeah, feeling the ability and opportunity to truly impact others. Yeah, so let's talk about strengthening meaning. How do we help strengthen people's meaning? How do we help them find meaning? Maybe they've lost it and they don't know where it is or what it is.
I think this is something that's really important, especially as people age and reach maybe toward the later years of their life, finding that meaning. There's a lot of activities, like life review projects, things like that, where they have an opportunity to discuss their lives, which sometimes gives them meaning, or giving back might be giving them meaning. But I think a lot of people contemplate what has their life meant at the end of life, especially. So just offering opportunities, maybe engaging local universities or schools to bring in other people of other ages. So this is a question on one of I teach at UNL, I teach gerontology, and my students have to do a generational interview. And so this is specifically a question on there that says, what gives your life meaning? And they interview people in like the boomer generation and then the silent generation. So you get kind of 2 different perspectives, and then they do their own. So you have a college age student, what's their life and what gives them meaning. Right. So I think just having opportunities for somebody to even put into words what gives them meaning.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Jenna. Ask them what they have done in the past that they enjoyed doing. Absolutely. And again, we're not always defined by our past. So also just, if they don't want to do it, what they've always done, we gotta be mindful of that too. So another thing we can do is read the history, the social history, and go, oh, well, they used to be a blah, blah, blah. So therefore they must really like doing this. And the truth is they're tired of doing blah, blah, blah. They don't ever want to do it again. So just, I think about the elders that don't want to cook because they spent their whole life cooking meals for their family and their husband, and they're like done with that, so over that. So just understanding the meaning changes. So one of the tools that we give people is simple pleasures. Identifying simple daily pleasures that people enjoy, and without it, their day wouldn't be quite as good. And also helping people define and discover new simple pleasures can be really powerful. And so we can interview people that we support and say, hey, what's a simple pleasure that you enjoy every day, and how can I make sure that that happens for you? Or, you know, something you enjoy on a regular basis, or even just every now and then. You know, what's a simple pleasure that you enjoy, and how can I be help you make sure that you continue to experience that? And then just weave it in to the day, and not make it a task, because the other thing about meaning is there's rituals to meaning. It's not a task. It's not just about doing the task. It's about the ritual around it. So if I go to Starbucks and get the hot chocolate that I like, I don't want to quickly drink it while I'm driving a car. I want to sit down and I really want to enjoy it. That's $5. Really enjoy it. That's what gives me pleasure, not just the drinking. I can drink water all day long, it's no big deal, but that's something I really want to sit down and enjoy. So again, how can you strengthen somebody's meaning? You've got that in there. Ask them what they've done, see if they want to continue doing it. I think about helping people have new experiences, exposing them to new opportunities to find meaning that they might not have ever had before in their life. So we got to be really careful about not getting caught up in their past, but like, what can we bring them up with and bring them new stuff? And I've got a team in Canada. I just love this community. They have brought in college students. So they have a writer in residence. So they've got elders now that are writing books. They go to Comic-Con. So they've got some elders that are creating graphic novels and doing comic book kind of stuff. They've got a photography club that they formed, and elders that never thought they wanted to do photography are doing photography. They have a 6th grade class that meets in the school. So they've got some elders that are now engaged in teaching and helping and supporting the 6th graders in their learning. They've got music and movement. And I mean, they're just bringing all kinds of really interesting experiences in to help people find what's meaningful to them. And in the process, the elders are growing, because that's the next domain. And so growth is all about ongoing development, evolving, enrichment, you know, realizing our human potential, possibilities. You know, is there an age where you stop growing, or is there a circumstance in life where you stop growing, where you've noticed that people stop growing? I'm sensing that's a no.
I would hope not, but maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I would hope not too. So what can weaken your opportunities to grow?
People getting in your way of that, not allowing you to pursue the things that are meaningful to you.
Yeah. Saying, no, we can't accommodate. No, you can't do that. No. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just not being given the opportunity.
Sometimes I'm always shocked at the residents. A lot of times they always try something new that, you know, they don't necessarily always have a fear. They're just given a chance to try something new. They're game.
Yep. Yep. I think about all the years we spent saying, oh, these elders, they'll never learn technology. You know, giving them an iPad, they're never going to figure. And it's like, they so like, boom, got it. It was fascinating to watch that. It was awesome. So yeah, people are always growing. I love that, Teresa. Thinking that you can't do something anymore due to age. That will stunt your growth. That's very good. Yes. So when we expect less of ourselves, other people expect less of us. That can stunt our growth. What are some ways to strengthen people's growth? To help people to grow?
Providing them the opportunity to grow, knowing that sometimes in providing that opportunity, we have to be more patient, take our time in being able to do that. You know, talking about the technology and thinking about COVID really provided a lot of opportunity for a lot of people to become more comfortable with technology. But I know in helping my elderly mother through the technology, that took a great deal, still takes a great deal of patience on my part. And then I also see my children trying to give me that patience in helping me understand technology that doesn't just come naturally to me the way it does to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Lori. I love it. Teresa says, encourage them to try something new, modify an activity to be successful. Absolutely. When you know the person well, you know their strengths, you can build on their strengths, ask them what they, get them in autonomy, security. See how these are all like starting to build on each other. So I love it, love it, love it. So yeah, we're always growing, we're always learning, and that doesn't stop. And the opportunities shouldn't stop as well. We need to keep giving people opportunities. And then the last one is joy. And joy is kind of an interesting one because it is happiness, it is pleasure, it is delight, it is contentment. And the thing about joy is it's a moment that catches you by surprise. So joy happens and then you're back to life, and then joy happens and you're back to life. So it's about kind of creating this context where joy just naturally emerges, where opportunities for people to have joy kind of naturally emerge. And that's something tough, especially when you get into congregate environments. And I would assume so. I don't have a lot of experience with people with mental health dis-ease, but my guess is that surprises aren't always the best thing for some people in that situation either. And so we can get into this really routinized environment, which works really well for some people, but it may not work for others. And so we have to know people and really be paying attention to that. Kelly says, think outside the box. Maybe you can't help them do exactly what they want, but how can we give them the same type of opportunity experience? Absolutely. So we call that getting to yes. How do we get to yes, even though it's against best medical practices and it's against this recommendation and that requirement and this rule and all that kind of stuff. But how could we get to yes, and what does that look like? So there you go, the alternative domains of well-being. I have just a few more minutes, so I want to talk to you a little bit about how you can use these, because I think that's really important to not just give you this information, but like, how could you use these? So one of the tools we teach about under our dementia training is called the Wellbeing Case Conference. And the idea is that you've got an elder who is expressing themselves in ways that are not necessarily good for them, not necessarily good for others. You may not even be able to understand why they're expressing whatever they're expressing. And so one of the things that you can do is use these 7 domains of well-being. So literally, Dr. Al Power says, imagine you have 7 glasses sitting on a shelf. And the first one is identity, the next one's connectedness, security, autonomy. So each one represents one of the 7 domains. And have the team, including the person, their family, whatever, get together and talk about how strong is this person's identity? Is the cup a third of the way full, half full, 3/4, overflowing? How full is their cup of identity right now? And then go down the domains and think about how strong is each one of those domains. And then as a team, you come together, and again, if you can engage the person, this is always the best, engage the person and say, okay, so let's work together 24/7. What can we do to strengthen your domain of blank? So whatever cup is the least full might be where you want to start, and say, how could we work together as a team to support you in strengthening this domain of well-being? What do you most need? And you think about it, because again, one of our approaches is to fix things in the moment. Fix it now. And well-being is something that needs to be addressed 24/7. So we're not just going to fix somebody's identity in the next 5 minutes. We need to continue to work on it and work on it and work on it. And we need to be paying attention to it 24/7. So you start with one domain that you think is probably the weakest right now for that person, and talk about what do you know about how you might strengthen that domain, but also what does that person need, and what does the family know about what they need, and how can you come together as a team to figure out all the times, all the ways we connect with them, how do we work together to strengthen that domain with that person? And then once you get that one stronger, then you go to the next weakest one and you start working on that. And so you keep working through the domains. So it's really interesting to kind of have that kind of conversation. And again, it opens up. I mean, think of what we talked about today. It's not anything that goes against regulations. It's not anything that's going to cost you lots of money. These are pretty easy fixes, and it's a different kind of conversation that leads to lifting people up instead of suppressing and pushing them down. So it's a really fun conversation. We've also adapted it in terms of thinking about how you evaluate the employees and how you work with them to ensure that they've got well-being. Because if you are in a care partnership with somebody who needs your assistance and your well-being isn't strong, it's going to be really hard for you to help them have a strong well-being because your needs aren't being met either. So how do we now, as people who are responsible for growing and engaging with the employees that we are partnering with, how do we help each other have good well-being so that we can go out and help the elders have good well-being? So really thinking about how to have a different kind of, not how good you do your job, how fast you get your tasks done, you're taking the right breaks, changing the conversation to saying, okay, what's your identity on this team, and how secure are you, and how connected are you, and what do you need to grow? What are your goals? What purpose does this job fulfill for you? What other purposes would you like it to fulfill? How do you, just having a different kind of conversation around the concepts of well-being can be super powerful. I've had that conversation. It's awesome. It's an awesome conversation, way better than you did this right, you did this wrong, you didn't do this. So you can use it also to think about how you interact with the employees that you're partnering with too. So I probably have talked way too much. You guys have been great. So thank you. I hope this was helpful and useful, and go spread well-being.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Denise. Again, thanks for joining us today, guys. We'll be sending out this recording to all of you, so feel free to use it wherever you feel necessary. We would hope that you would join us again next month. We're going to hear from Jeffrey All, and he is the principal and owner of Architecture, which is an architect firm that specializes in senior living. So Jeff spent a year long and did a research project on residents that lived in skilled nursing facilities. He actually moved into skilled nursing facilities for 21 days to do some research, and really was able to gather some super valuable information, not just about the architectural elements, right, of skilled facilities, but also how important the culture is and connectingness and relationship is. And so he's going to talk to us about that experience and everything that he learned on Wednesday, February 15th at 10 a.m. So we'll be sending out some reminders. You can also find that on our website under events. The title of it's called "It's All About Culture and Relationships, How 21 Days changed my passion for elders." So really excited to have him. Denise, great job. You're a fantastic speaker. Let us know if you guys have questions, if there's something that we can do to help you with your culture change movement. We would love to be involved in that and help you in any way that we can. Or if you just want to be more involved in the Nebraska Culture Change Coalition, shoot us an email. Our information is on our website. We'd love to have you guys join us. And we're getting ready to launch another grant project, a year-long grant project. We just finished one with some CMP funds for the state, and we're doing another grant project coming up here really soon. So fun stuff. If you know of a facility that wants to participate in some dementia education over the next year, let us know, because we're going to be recruiting for that. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and hopefully we'll see you next month. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.